I'm begging you, don't touch me! Don't touch me! I can do 93
Ms. Rice, you should be grateful that it's being dismissed. Let's see. Priorities were. Are there new charges from this alleged incident that occurred the other day?
So there are new charges pending in district court that have already been filed. I think it's a trespass, but it might be just an assault.
I think it's an assault battery, Your Honor.
And then Mr. Coase advised us of an incident yesterday that may also have new charges. Those will obviously be dealt with in district court separately. And I, again, don't want to dismiss these charges, but I think at this point, it's best to move forward and not make Ms. Rice's ex and son testify if it's not necessary.
Okay. All right. So, with regard to sentencing today on the contempt court, are you ready to proceed to that, Mr. McLeod?
I am, Your Honor.
All right. Do people have any position on sentencing before the court proceeds?
Just like I said, I do think the maximum on the contempt of court would accurately reflect the delays in this case. Time is often in favor of the accused, and it certainly has worked in Ms. Rice's favor in this case. But that being said, I think the maximum on the contempt is more than fair, given her number of positive tests, including today being positive, and given I could go back and see how many times this was delayed based on her non-appearance, but I don't have that figure right in front of me on both cases, and as well, that's not even counting the district court where she had failed to appear and was arrested in district court before it was found over. So, thank you.
Mr. Millar, anything you'd like to say on behalf of Ms. Rice?
I would, Judge. Judge, I have.
The courtroom opens with chaos, laughter, and screaming, immediately grabbing attention. The judge announces new charges for Ms. Rice, including assault and trespass, highlighting repeated failures to appear and prior delays. The tension is palpable as the legal stakes are spelled out. This opening clearly frames her precarious position, letting viewers sense the seriousness of the case. Every word hints at the struggle between law, procedure, and human emotion. The audience is drawn into the drama, waiting to see how events unfold. The stage is set for a clash of authority and personal turmoil.
Represented Ms. Rice, I think, almost since the time I started the public defender's office. So I'm very well acquainted with Ms. Rice and all of her legal troubles. That being said, Judge, none of this is an excuse for her behavior, but 3-4 years ago, well, first of all, and I think this court's also well acquainted with Ms. Rice as well. Whatever happened prior to that is certainly played a great deal on her emotion, how she handles things at an emotional level. And I think as we all know, when we let emotions take control of our decision-making process, we usually make bad decisions. And Ms. Rice is engaged in counseling and therapy and will probably need it for a very long time to help her get past that area where she lets her emotions take control of her decision-making process. That being said, there are times where she is she has some good attributes. One is she's a good mother. And I know that this court could argue and not actually argue, but state that how can you be a good mother if you're using drugs that you shouldn't be using? And there's no debate with that. But by all accounts, through her CPS case, which I handled, and through today, her primary focus for the last 3 years has been her children. She has 2. She is the primary caregiver. The fact that CPS has closed the file on her shows that she's committed to continuing to be a good mother.
That was quite a while ago.
About 10 months maybe. I think it was December, October. But she has continued to make strides to getting housing, getting the services she needs. Guardian, the last time we were in on that case, had no issues with her as her parenting skills. Ms. Rice faces many challenges, Judge. You know, she was in district court yesterday, and I was present for that hearing, and the judge, you know, spoke to her, and one of the things that's apparent is Ms. Rice has so much burdening her. Children, these pending cases, which I think if we can get them, if these are finally resolved today, will be a great help in getting her past that. Remove those stressors that I think will help her life settle down somewhat. She can spend more time focusing on her children. I think she tends to put too much emphasis on things and uses that as a way to justify some of her behavior, such as not appearing in court, not attending certain things. And I certainly understand the state's point of view on this and their situation. But I think this is a good resolution. I think that the longer she's in jail, the more risk her children are.
The defense attorney presents an emotional, detailed plea on behalf of Ms. Rice. He stresses her role as a dedicated mother and caregiver, emphasizing her counseling and efforts to improve her life. Her past trauma and emotional struggles are highlighted, showing the human side behind the charges. The courtroom sees her vulnerability, making viewers feel empathy despite the legal situation. The plea contrasts sharply with the facts, heightening tension. He stresses the consequences for her children if she is incarcerated. The argument builds suspense while painting a sympathetic portrait of her character. This is where the audience begins to fully understand the stakes.
And so, with all of that being said, Judge, and knowing Ms. Rice and knowing that she actually has a case, she has to be in district court on this assault charge this morning yet. So I told her to come here first, and she did. I'd ask the court to use its wisdom and fashion the most appropriate and lenient sentence as to any jail time as it possibly can. That would be our request on Ms. Rice's behalf.
Ms. Rice, is there anything you'd like to say on your own behalf?
Yeah.
Okay, I need you to go stand at the podium for me.
Years ago, when Eleanor was born, at Toledo Children's Hospital, her meconium came back with methamphetamine in it. And I had not touched it. I had never touched it. And so they did a very extensive and intrusive test through ProMedica. Eleanor had zero withdrawal. Zero. They monitored her for 6 hours. She had zero withdrawals. Not one withdrawal did she have. None. Because I wasn't using that drug, but the drugs that I take through my Dr. Noble. And Dr. Noble told me and my case manager this in her office. They cause a false positive. When Memphis was born, his meconium came back with the same exact test results, but they didn't even go through what they went through. They didn't call CPS. CPS never got called because they knew that it was verbatim the same exact as Eleanor's. My kids will lose everything, and I have worked really hard to get where we're at. We will lose it all. When I went to jail this last time, I lost my daycare for my kids, which is why I had to bring them to court. I reapplied. I started all over all of my stuff again. This thing downstairs that happened.
Ms. Rice speaks directly to the court, passionately claiming that previous drug test results were false positives. She recounts the birth of her children and the detailed hospital monitoring, reinforcing her dedication to their care. Her voice conveys fear, urgency, and emotional strain, adding dramatic weight. The courtroom witnesses a first-hand perspective of her struggles, making the audience feel connected to her plight. She emphasizes her innocence and the hard work she's done to maintain stability. The tension rises as her personal narrative clashes with the legal reality. Every line keeps viewers on edge, anticipating the judge's response. This segment humanizes her while intensifying suspense.
I need to be able to fight that because it's a lie. I didn't put my hands on her. She put her hands on me and my kid.
All right, so ma'am, I don't want you to talk about any pending cases because everything you say can be used against you because this is a court record. All right, so don't talk about events that occurred on new cases. Say that for your parents.
I know that my kids will be in foster care if I go to jail. I don't have anybody to watch them. Their dad has not seen them in over 2 months. I've climbed out of my trenches. I've climbed out of them by myself. I've worked by myself with them in tow, and we need each other, and they need me, and I'm not using.
Mr. Coast, you administered a test today to her, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And did she test positive for anything?
Tested positive for the THC, amphetamines, and also methamphetamines.
Now, we know she's on Adderall, but her levels were extremely high, so that would be more than it would cause a positive test.
And to her previous test was a swab that was actually sent to the lab. I did talk to the lab. They said the only thing that would make methamphetamine turn positive is methamphetamine. We'll do a false positive in the Adderall.
True.
All right, so Ms. Rice, back.
The judge intervenes as Miss Rice's emotional outburst escalates, warning her about discussing pending matters. She openly expresses fear that her children could enter foster care, heightening the tension in the room. The courtroom sees her panic and desperation, contrasting sharply with the objective drug test results, which confirm high levels. This part captures the clash between personal fear and legal accountability. Viewers are drawn into the emotional intensity while understanding the real consequences of her actions. Her vulnerability and the judge's firm stance create a suspenseful push and pull. The audience feels the gravity of the moment and anticipates what will happen next.
Now, I realize that you completed a CPS case, you had your children placed in your care, and the case was closed in October. But what I will tell you, what I've seen is you go downhill since then. I'm talking now, not you. So on April 17th of 2023, there was a motion affidavit and bench warrant because you failed to call in to pretrial services coordinator. They're imposed on a daily basis. There were no call-ins from 4/10 of 23 to today. It's date on April 17th. Let's see. I have a drug screen collected April 6th of 23 that shows a positive test for methamphetamine. So then, let's see, we'll go to the next one. On May 16th of 2023, you failed to appear for warrant on May 16th of 2023. Issued a bench warrant. Let's see, this one was filed April 18th. I would call in. Let's see. Appear. Bench warrant arraignment. I have a failure to appear for bench warrant arraignment on May 16, signed by me on May 16. I have pretrial release order. You have to comply with CMH recommendations and medications. And we've got multiple tests that were sent in on a swab showing your levels are dangerously high. So, Ms. Rice, I'm talking. So, Ms. Rice, I have great concerns about your mental health, your physical health, and your just defiance from day one of the court's orders, and also a downhill spiral that I'm seeing in your behavior. Court's orders are in place, and while I have great sympathy for your trials and tribulations, I also feel that you have taken advantage of that to some extent, trying to manipulate the court. But based on just overwhelming issues I've had for you, with you and your failure to comply with court orders, I think you got off very lucky today because the charges are being dismissed.
The judge delivers a detailed and unflinching account of Miss Rice's failures, including missed call-ins, repeated positive drug tests, and defiance of court orders. He highlights her downward spiral and the risks to her well-being and her children. The courtroom is shown balancing compassion with strict legal assessment. This is the peak of logical tension, as every fact and pattern of behavior is laid bare. The audience sees the judicial process in action and how evidence shapes decisions. Her previous claims and emotional arguments are weighed against reality. The segment builds suspense as viewers anticipate the impending sentencing. It clearly shows the court's reasoning and escalating stakes.
I am going to sentence you to jail for 93 days.
Please don't do my kids will be foster care. Please don't. Please
Get
judge.
credit for any time you've already served.
Can you please just
Drop
go down and give me a try? Please,
No.
judge. Please, I'm begging you. I'm begging you. My kids are gonna be in foster care. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. I can't do 93 too. Can I pay? Please, can I bond out? Can I pay?
You're
I can't do this, please.
gonna get credit.
Please. This is why I don't come.
You're gonna get credit.
Let me go, please.
No.
Please let me go.
Consent to 93.
Okay, but I can't breathe. I can't breathe this way. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't walk.
The climax hits with Miss Rice being sentenced to 93 days in jail. Her reaction is raw and desperate, with screaming, begging, and panic over her children's safety. The courtroom witnesses the human cost of legal consequences. Every moment conveys emotional intensity and fear, leaving viewers stunned. This is the emotional peak, showing the consequences of her actions and the fragility of her situation. The segment combines legal authority with human vulnerability. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video. The audience is left reflecting on the drama, justice, and emotional stakes.